Hello, my sweet baby bats. Today we're going to be talking about Salem. I am dressed up for the part. This was actually a requested video from Julia. I'm not sure how to say the entire username. I'm sorry, I'm illiterate, but they requested that I made a little video about my female character, which is Salem here. So I went all out. I am dressed in what I usually wear to our vampire balls, hair and all. And I just want to sit and talk about Salem for a little while. It's been some time since I really talked about any of my dolls, especially Salem. I give so much attention to the boys, but I went all out this time for this video and I'm excited. I hope that I don't sound too weird. I thought I sounded normal at first, but now I'm starting to think that I sound a little off, but who cares? I'm having fun with this. We're going to be talking about Salem today. Salem is my with doll battle maid Olivia. There were two versions of this. I'm not sure what the other one is. I always forget their name. But this is Olivia. She is wearing part of her full set as well as a full set from the Teeny Fox Ashley doll, which is a vinyl doll. I don't have that Teeny Fox Ashley anymore, but she's a mix match of the both of them. So hopefully you guys can see her beauty there. I have a whole conversation about Salem, how we got her, how we came up with the character, and a little bit of her backstory in the chat. I think it was the Wine and Dollies for November. We talk about this sweet lady, so if you want to know more about that, I would go check out that video. We also talk a little bit about her personality and like some of her backstory in the summer BJD tag that we posted again a couple weeks ago. So we've been talking about Salem for a bit, but we haven't really gotten into her story, especially like the story that she's actually in, not her backstory. For those who haven't seen it, or just as a little refresher, I will tell you a little bit about her backstory and then we'll talk about the story that she's actually in. So, Salem is a battle nun. She is a part of this sisterhood that they go out and defeat monsters and what have you. Vampires, werewolves, the whole 9 yards, right? She's a part of that sisterhood. However, she has never actually been on a mission before. I do talk about that again in those other videos. Something happened in her ancestry that has made it that she is no longer able to go on missions. She doesn't know that. The sisters have kept it, or sorry, not the sisters, but the elders had kept the truth behind why she's not being sent on missions from her and everyone else. She is finally sent on a mission, which is in a way connected to the one that her ancestors were sent on to. I say ancestors, but it's just one person. It's one of the ones that their ancestor was sent on and ended up betraying the nuns. It's the similar mission. It's the same family blood or what have you. Don't worry, we will get into that. We will get into that, so it'll make more sense a little bit later. But she's not sent on a mission until she is sent to kill Julian. When she is sent there, I'm again not sure if she's gonna have a friend or if she'll be by herself, but she will be basically almost to death. Julian fights her to near death, but then realizes that one, she kind of looks familiar, and two, she may be able to put him out of his misery. Now, to understand Salem's story, we kind of have to talk about Julian's story. I had made a video back in 2023, I believe it was, about Julian's backstory, and yes, it's deleted from my channel, but I want to insert it here because, again, knowing Julian's backstory is going to really help with Salem's story. So, I'm going to go ahead and insert it here. Yes, it is an older video. Don't mind the cringe, but it'll tell you what you need to know for Salem's story. Julian was a bastard child to a poor woman and unknown father. In fear of her child's well-being, for she had very little money to feed herself, let alone a newborn child, she gave her son away to her grieving friend. This friend, a woman of very high status and of a wealthy family, failed to conceive her own child and vowed to take care of Julian as her own. Adopting him, the woman and her husband would raise Julian to have a normal childhood. However, his new family was far from normal. Julian was now the child of first-generation vampires. When the boy was born, he was assigned a nanny who would care for him during his early years. She taught him how to walk, talk, read, and write. The boy spent a considerate amount of time playing with the nanny and would begin to grow an attachment to her, sometimes preferring his nanny over his own mother. The mother began to feel jealous of her son's attachment and banned the nanny from the estate when Julian was only 5. A butler was assigned to him shortly after. As Julian got older, the unaging mother began to fear the day she would lose her son. Though Julian was only 9, the fear of his weak, mortal blood kept the mother up at night, until one day, without the father's discretion, she decided to perform a turning ritual. When the deed had been made, there was no turning back, and Julian would forever remain a 9-year-old boy. The mother was thrilled for her new, unaging child. However, the father was furious to learn of the turning, resenting both the mother and the boy, refusing to further accept him as his child. Time passed as Julian grew mentally older, but stayed in the form of his 9-year-old self. He watched as butlers came and went with age, and as time continued, he began to feel an overpowering sadness. He missed the nanny he spent his first years with, but knowing by now her fate would have taken her, all he could do is lay in his bed with the company of his own loneliness. Until one day, he was awoken by a familiar voice. "You need to leave," it said. Was it her? But how? The voice pleaded again. "You need to leave, Julian. Now!" Half asleep and malnourished, he couldn't move, but by some act of God, he woke up to find himself in the middle of the forest. It was cold, and Julian still felt weak, but now the moon was able to provide him with some energy, even if it wasn't much. Luckily for him, centuries of playing in the woods made him familiar with the landscape, and he made it back home before sunrise, but only in time to witness the last breaths of his dying parents. Someone had murdered the all-powerful first-generation vampires, and Julian was there to witness the last moments of their downfall. For the first few months, the estate was the only witness to his rage. Broken glass littered the floors, curtains lay torn from their rods, and when the entire mansion was picked and turned, Julian had nowhere else to unleash his anger. Until he recalled the village on the outskirts of the mountains, the village his sweet nanny warned him to stay away from all those centuries ago. This same village, now larger in population, that would become his new outlet for his rage. Every month for the next 13 years, Julian would terrorize the villagers. Some months he would feast on every small child in his sight. Others he would leave many dead. He lacked any sort of pattern for his actions, except arriving every new moon when there was little light in the sky and the village was at its darkest. As time went on, his outbursts grew deadlier. One August night after Julian's latest feast, he was visited by an angel of death. She begged him to cease his monthly terrors, but he refused to abide by her request. By the next month, her request became a demand, and she threatened that if he was to kill again, she would take his life instead. Angered by this threat, he would have killed her then. But was it just him? Or did the angel sound familiar? So, it's something to note that Julian's story is slightly different than it was in that little narration there. There's still going to be an angel, there's still going to be that kind of communication of like telling him not to keep terrorizing the village. However, it's not the angel that goes after him to kill him. Instead, she goes to the sisters, tells them what's going on. She's kind of like the messenger in the way. She is still the angel of death and what have you, but she is the messenger between the sisterhood and Julian. He ends up not listening to her, and that's when Salem is sent out to kill him. Now, Salem is sent out to do this mission. However, she's never been on a mission before. So the elders know that this is kind of a death sentence, but they also feel like if she can accomplish this, it can kind of prove to them that she's pure. She's not like her ancestors. She's of pure mind and soul and can carry on this mission of the sisters, right? So she's sent on that mission, and when she gets there, she realizes that, I mean, again, she's never been sent on one before, so she's very, very much not ready to fight such a strong being such as a vampire. So Julian leaves her to near death until he recognizes her. So the storyline with Julian was that he was given to somebody's friend, like a dear friend. That's not really the truth per se. Julian's biological mother is actually a maid to this huge estate, right? And she gets by the estate's master's brother. Now, the lord and lady of this estate cannot have their own child. Considering that the father of the child is the brother, they decide it's a good idea if the lord and lady of the estate take the child as their own, and nobody would know the difference really, because he would have the same genes basically, like, do you know what I mean? Okay, hopefully that made sense. So the maid stays with the lord and lady of that estate, but that's the same nanny from the story that the lady ends up banishing because Julian was having too close of a relationship. Now, this maid doesn't have a name actually, but we'll call her maid for now, ex-maid. I don't know. But this maid ends up leaving and joining the nuns. She believes that, she used to work with the vampires and what have you, but after being betrayed by them, and being kind of taken in by the nuns, she starts to be, in a way, brainwashed. That'll make sense in a minute. Starts to be brainwashed that these monsters, or these creatures, are monsters, and joins the nuns on their hunts and what have you. Now, fast forward a little bit later, when Julian's parents die, the voice that comes to save him, Julian, from it, spoiler alert, is that maid. I almost said nanny, but maid. Maid, nanny, same thing, right? It's the spirit of that maid. She ends up joining the battle nuns. But one of the missions that she's sent out to do is to kill the lord and lady of that estate. So it's like this whole big circle around, right? She's sent to do that, but she refuses, and that's the whole betrayal. She ends up fighting against the nuns, losing her life, and centuries later, not centuries later, sorry, I guess, no, centuries later, her spirit is the one that goes to Julian to try to save him, because the nuns now are going to try to do what they did, try to do the mission they did before. Does that make sense? Let me put her down for a minute. So in this timeline, and Salem will come, I promise. In this timeline, you have the maid has a baby, and it's taken by the Lord and Lady. After a couple of years of like caring for the baby, even though it's now the Lord and Lady's, the maid is banished because the mother gets jealous. Fast forward a little bit more. The mother turns Julian into a vampire. And a little bit like in between that time, when the maid becomes a nun or a battle nun, she is sent to kill the Lord and Lady, who she used to work for, who is the parents of her child. She couldn't do it. She didn't want to do it. So she fights against the nuns against doing it because she didn't want to do the mission. Does that make sense? She dies in that time. The Lord and Lady are never killed. Not until centuries later. Now we fast forward to centuries later, where the nuns try to do the mission once again and succeed, spoiler alert, but the spirit of the maid, which was Julian's biological mom, which was the nun who refused to kill the Lord and Lady, that spirit goes to Julian, wakes him up, and brings him out. That's why he recognizes the voice, because it was his old nanny. When he returns, the deed is done, the mission is finally done, and the Lord and Lady are dead, and Julian goes on a rampage, right? Now you have Salem comes in, because Salem is a descendant of, oh gosh, her hair is a mess. Oh no, that's gonna bother me now. Now that's where Salem comes in, because Salem is the descendant of this maid, nanny, Julian's biological mother. She's the descendant of that. She's unable to do missions because the nuns still hold that betrayal from many years ago, or I guess many centuries ago, and have kept her from being able to do those missions. So that's how kind of everything ties in. Now, there is going to be some kind of like, what is the word I'm thinking? Conspiracy theory-ish situation going on. My hair is annoying me. There's this whole like conspiracy thing, like why are the Lord and Lady even killed? Like what did they do? What are the nuns up to kind of situation? So that's for a whole nother story. But this is where Salem comes in. She is sent to kill Julian to prove that she's pure enough to be an actual nun and an actual sister. She goes on that mission. She goes to near death. Julian recognizes her. Again, she's she's a descendant of that nanny that he loves and cares so deeply for and longs for, right? So from that, he decides not to just kill her off, but then gets the idea that if he can heal her back so she can live the rest of her life, she can also end his life and his suffering. So that's kind of how they become like in cahoots. Not in cahoots, because she doesn't know what he's doing. When she awakes and she's in this mansion, she is freaking out, like, why are you doing this? This does not make any sense. And of course he's standoffish. He's not going to say why he's actually doing it and what have you. But that's how their lives kind of intertwine, if that makes sense. So that's Salem. That's her story so far. We've talked about all of that already. This is just more detail, I guess you can say. The rest of the story for Salem, she's going through this sort of reawakening in a way. You know those stereotypical stories where it's like the person looks up to the good guys and realizes that the good guys are actually terrorists and the bad guys are just trying to live their life? It's similar to that. She's gonna go through her healing and like being around this vampire, realizing that he's not this monster they say that he is, and he'll share stories of like how the nuns are scary and they are the monsters, and she starts to see things from a different perspective. And the thing is, like, if she was any other sister, any other nun, they wouldn't fall for it. But there's this different type of humanity in her, passed from her ancestors, that makes her kind of like more susceptible, if that's the right word, susceptible to seeing the truth and not being brainwashed by the lies, if any of that makes sense. There is a particular elder that believes in her purity more than anyone else in the elders high up, right? And that elder ends up dying from some type of cause after Salem has left. Now, the elder at the time believes that Salem is dead, but now as a spirit herself, she has the knowing of everything, basically. Like, she doesn't have, she has no more humanity, so she's not just simple-minded per se. She has the knowing of the entire universe, and now knows that Salem is actually alive. This also means without that humanity, and she's very much, think of like nature. Nature is not good or bad. It's kind of just, it just is, right? So her spirit form of this elder, right? The spirit form, it just is. So everything that the nuns do, it's not right or wrong. It just is. So that spirit brings herself to Salem and just tells things as it is. There's no bias to what she's saying. And now Salem can start to see things in a different light, especially now that the spirit is saying things, like I said, in such a clear, just blanket, not a, oh, this is the right way, this is the wrong way, right? So now, more than anything, she is questioning her beliefs and where she stands with the sisters. Like, they're just terrorists. These vampires, these werewolves, they're just trying to live their life. Maybe there are some who are evil, who are bad, but there are evil and bad people, right? And I keep wanting to show you her up close and personal, because I don't even think it's zooming in on her, is it? Let me move this back so I'm not kicking it. Oh, there's the hubby. So, with staying with Julian and learning from his perspective, with the spirit now being an unbiased, just being of knowing, I don't know, she is starting to question some of the things that the nuns are doing. So now we fast forward to the nuns have found out that the nuns have found out that Julian is not actually dead. They thought he was dead because he was no longer attacking the village, but there was no proof. After the elder had died, they reach out to her or something. I don't really have that. Don't hold me to it because I don't really have that part planned out. But some way or somehow, the elders find out that the vampire is not actually dead and that they have to send out their elites to finish the job. And that's where Salem has to now choose between going back with the nuns, where she spent her entire life worshiping, basically, and following their teachings, and I almost freaked. I want to make sure, following their teachings and what have you, or stand alongside Julian and do what she believes is the right thing to do, which aligns with her ancestry, because in a way, like, Julian is related to her somehow, right? So that's Salem. I love her. I wish I can show her in more detail, but because of her skin tone, I think she's not, I don't think it's focusing on her. Steven, can you help me? Can you see if you can force focus it on her?
Yes.
I keep trying, but I don't think. Let's see. Ooh! Thank you, husband.
You're welcome.
This is Salem. Did you lock it or no?
I didn't lock it.
Okay. So that's the beautiful Salem. Up close and personal. Thank you, husband. I really love her to death. I know we talked a lot about, like, the politics, really. If you think about it, it's really Julian's backstory and, like, the politics around Salem. We haven't really talked about Salem herself. Again, in that, what is it? Summer BJD tag, you get more of her personality. She is just somebody who does everything by the book. So when she is forced to question everything she knows, it's gonna fuck her up. It's gonna fuck her in the head for sure. But that's her. I love that she looks like a little anime doll. I really do. A quick, I mean, I talked about it before, but just a quick, let's put it here. She is based off of a doll, another doll that I ended up getting because I couldn't get this one. I got the other one, and I created Salem as a character. That was, so I had the Angel of Death set before I had Salem set. Once I put Salem into that story, things started to change a little bit, and then I sold that because I didn't like the body. I got her as a replacement, like a reshell of Salem, and I've never looked back since. There is still that Angel of Death, which is different than the person who ends up saving saving Julian before the parents were killed. There is still the Angel of Death, and that's just going to be a whole nother story. If you are a returning friend and you remember who Avison is, yeah, Avison might be our Angel of Death, but that's a whole nother story. Salem here, she is just kind of like the messenger. I kind of like to imagine her as a sort of messenger of God situation, or like maybe not messenger of God, but like, I don't know. I love the idea that she has to question what she's believed all this time. Oh man, she's all messed up. I'm sorry, but that's all I have for you guys today. I wish I planned this a little bit more. Let me know if that was a disappointing storytelling of her, because it wasn't really her, was it? But it was very much what the story she's in. I do want to share a particular storyline might not be the right word, but like, I don't know how it's going to be important to the story, but I have this diorama in mind, and it's like I can visualize how the entire thing is set up, and there's like, the only point of this particular storyline I'm about to share with you, the only point of that is for this diorama. I need to find a way to like weave it in a little bit more, but I digress. I have this scene. So the diorama I have in mind is a living room. Think of a super gothic-y little powder room situation living room. And there's going to be a lovely sofa, a solo chair, a mirror, a dress bag, and inside the dress bag is going to be a beautiful dress that has not been touched in a very long time. Now, the story behind it is that room is where Julian's parents were murdered, and it's the only room that was not touched by the wrath of Julian. Remember in the story earlier, he destroys the entirety of that mansion except for that living room. Now, that living room being undamaged is going to be the area where him and Salem talk the most, because like everywhere else is trashed. But that dress that is in the dress bag that's been untouched is the dress that the mother was supposed to be wearing on the night out when the Lord and Lady were going to leave before getting murdered. So that dress is significant. It's his mother's dress. It's the last remains, basically, of his mother. There was some, I think that was it. It was the mirror, the chair, the dress, and then like just a powder room setup, right? All of that backstory, or like backstory, is simply for me wanting that diorama set up that way. I do want to try to add a little bit more story to it than just that, but I kind of wanted to share that because I had this whole part of the story in there simply because I wanted to make a diorama of it. But anyways, that is part of Salem's story, I guess Salem and Julian's story. Let me know what else you want to know about her. If you have any unique questions about her, I'll definitely answer them in the comments below. Like this video so other people can see this beautiful face of mine, and with that, I hope you blossom in all of your endeavors, and until next time, bye. I need to take these teeth out because they literally hurt. When you talk, like I can talk in them, but when you're like talking for 35 minutes, yeah, it starts to hurt.